And before we wrap up, Robert, I want to make sure we make mention of a new book. You have a revised and expanded edition of your best-selling book, Operating in the Courts of Heaven. I think you said that book, the original book, has passed 1 million copies sold worldwide, which is an insane accomplishment. I think every author hopes a handful of people read their book, but just to get to that level is a momentous, growing occasion. It just keeps going and going and going when you get to that level. But this is kind of that flagship book in the series. Why was it time to do a revised and expanded edition? And if somebody already has that original edition, why should they consider this new one? And a release date, September 21st, 2021. So it's coming out in a few months. So why'd you write it, and why do we need to add this to our library, even if we already have that first book?
Well, because the first book I wrote in the early stages of understanding the court of heaven. And the court of heaven, I mean, because it's such a unique subject, it takes a renewing of the mind to get your mind wrapped around it. And so I wrote that early on. And I actually wrote it quite honestly from a very mystical mindset, because that's the way I was encountering it at the time. And well, what I've discovered since then is that yes, I'm all for the mystical. I'm all for the moves of the spirit, the realms of the spirit. I still function there probably more than ever. But I also realized that I needed to practically bring this down so that, and when I say down, I don't mean water it down, but bring it to the place where people could understand it. And that's really what I've done in this second book. I went back and took the principles in this first one and actually expanded on some of them. Expanded, okay, this is what I meant by this. This is what was meant by this. And we began to expand in a much more practical way of how we can operate in the courts of heaven. Because I couldn't do that in the first one because I didn't have enough experience myself. And so being able to do that in the second one, I think it's going to be a great help to people. It's still going to have the punch, the strength, the power of the first one, but it's going to let there be an expansion on the practicalities of how what I explained mystically in the first book. And so I think it'll help people in a big way.
And again, that's the revised and expanded edition of Operating in the Courts of Heaven. Releases September 21st of 2021, available for pre-order on Amazon and wherever great Christian books are sold. You can pre-order that one now.